You're listening to the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast, episode 110. How and why the skills, techniques, and strategies that I talk about here every week and train students in are universal when it comes to your teens' subjects, tasks, and across their year groups. So they can use a skill, a strategy, a technique, a tool in different ways for multiple tasks and therefore get multiple benefits, multiplied opportunities to practice and hone them, and multiple benefits and reward. I'm Katie Jones, and with over 15 years in education as an award-winning high school teacher, international external examiner, and as a study coach, I've helped thousands of students skyrocket their results and confidence. And this podcast is where I share all my insights, tactics, and tips with you, the parent, so you can help your hardworking teen get happy, smart, and successful in their study, and have you both enjoy the journey along the way. This is the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast. Hello, VIPs. I hope you and your teens are doing fantastic. I am so good. I am back on board from moving house, and right now I am very much feeling on fire, ready and raring to go. But I can tell you, if I'd been recording this a week ago, those are not words I would have been using. So I think it was a good move to pre-record an extra couple of episodes to get us through the past few weeks, because this time last week I was exhausted. Packing, cleaning, moving, more cleaning, so much cleaning, and unfortunately a back and shoulder injury in the process, but nothing major. A bit of a strain, some pains, but it has all been worth it. Though I will say, given that we are going to be totally renovating this place, we've done the not great house, but in a great location thing. There will definitely be some reset time and thinking time before that. And I have seriously been thinking, not really, but kind of, just about saving the money and the time and the hassle and just keeping the handrails and the ramps and the other elderly assistance things that we have in the bathroom and around the place, just because I have felt like, honestly, they have been quite useful with a dodgy back over the past week. And I feel like I've aged about 10 years in the process. So I feel like it might not be that far off before we are actually going to maybe start needing those again. So we'll see. But I have spent the past 5 or 6 days just getting back on top of everything and into everything that we have coming up in Rock Solid Study. And poor Bonnie, our dog, who went without a few walks for a few days there, is getting plenty of attention, plenty of exercise now to make up for things. And a good walk in this beautiful Queensland winter sun is always as good as a rest for me. So my energy is refueled and my brain is ready for action. So let's do this. I got the idea for this episode in the last couple of days because I also just delivered a teacher PD, professional development, full-day workshop last week. And I became aware as we went through the day that I was mentioning a lot the word universal. And you've probably heard me say it here or on a webinar or in an email too. So I thought it would be good to properly explain what I really mean by it and why it is such a positive thing. Because at the PD, I had high school teachers from a really diverse range of subjects and year groups and states throughout the country. The workshop was entitled Boost Your Students' Exam Results and Confidence No Matter How Close They Are to Exams. So there were pastoral leaders who were responsible for delivering study school sessions. There were year 11 and 12 heads of year who were looking for specific ways to support their senior students academically. There were heads of department and, of course, subject teachers from all different subjects, from maths to English. And for the first time ever, Italian. I don't think I've ever had Italian as a language teacher in any PD that I've run before. But I say all of this to give you an example of how the skills and concepts and techniques that I deliver, no matter where, no matter to who, are universal. So here's what I really mean by universal. I use it to describe the training that I deliver to students and the concepts and strategies that I share with teachers and the information that I share with you as parents and carers as being applicable across any subject in any year group from years 9 to 12 or 10 to 13, depending on where you are and your education system, and throughout any Western education systems, including the International Baccalaureate, GCSEs and A-levels in England and Wales, Scottish Highers, the Cambridge International Qualifications in international schools, the NCEA in New Zealand. Those are all exam boards and syllabuses and education systems that I've had experience of working with directly or with students who are following them. And there are likely more that would also be relevant. I know we have listeners here on the podcast and community members based in the US as well. And hey, if you're listening in from somewhere else that I have not named, please drop us an email and let me know. Geography is my main teaching subject, so I would love to hear about that. But the point being that these skills are not subject or syllabus or even task specific. However, they are skills, strategies, and techniques that students are required to understand, to know, and apply throughout different subjects and syllabuses and tasks. But in my experience, they are rarely explicitly taught, perhaps because they are universal. Because they are not subject or year group or syllabus or exam board specific. Because if they were, then it likely would be someone's or some entity's specific responsibility to train students in them. But that is not the case. So here are a few examples that I used during that PD workshop that I thought might also be helpful for you and your teen to be aware of. One example of a universal skill is dissecting the question and then responding to the command of the question. Now, this goes for questions, of course, in any subject. It could be in classwork, homework, an inquiry question, an exam question. And in a discussion in the workshop, at one point I used the example of a maths exam question that I was marking for back in the first QCS exam paper that I ever marked for, which would have been back in, I think, 2015. And I used this because maths is a subject that people sometimes ask me, like, how does this really apply in maths? Isn't that just practicing questions? And there was one question on that paper that asked students to, using the graph provided, estimate the total number of downloads of a video that was shown on that graph in a given week between certain dates that were specified. Now, I remember this question really clearly because so many students calculated rather than estimated. And it was even more interesting to me because it was the more able students that were doing the calculating because they had the skills and the knowledge to be able to do so at a high level. They were doing things like calculating areas of trapeziums and then adding them up. The trapezium being the shape underneath the graph that the line had made. Some students were even using calculus to work this out. And many of those did get the right answer, but they took up so much time in doing so. And that meant they likely ran out of time or didn't have as much time for other questions that did need that time. Another example of a universal skill is essay writing. And we did a little bit of work on this in the workshop around mark schemes and the more generalized descriptors that tend to go with essays and extended responses. But whether that is a history essay, an English essay, or a scientific research essay, your teen needs to be able to write about not just the topic of the essay, but directly respond to the focus of the essay. They need to do things like identify and use the most relevant examples or evidence or quotes to support that response. And they need to be able to do that in the most sophisticated yet succinct way that meets those high-level criteria. Because I see so many students either missing the focus of the question and so losing marks, or going way over the word count in an effort to try and hit the top criteria. So they end up losing what should be their free time or even their sleep time while they then cut it back and edit down that word count. Or even, the worst situation, having both of those happen. Then there's the overall skill of exam technique. Now, there are 6 elements of exam technique, but we often talk about exam technique overall as a skill. Now, of course, this applies to all subjects where exams or tests are sat and across all year groups, but obviously, especially in those external examination years, because those are where the wording of the questions and the demands of the mark schemes are so stringent. There is no wriggle room. There's no discretionary marks. There's no knowledge of your teen and their ability. They are just a number on a page. And I am a big fan of students really becoming excellent in their exam technique. Not because I'm a big fan of exams in terms of being an assessment tool, simply because these are the types of assessments that for most students bring up the most stress and anxiety, are often worth a big percentage of their final grade, and because I always say, if they could do it in exams, they can do it in everything else. Classwork, homework, assignments. And tied to that is the universal skill of revision, encompassing strategies and systems like reverse engineered revision planning, strategically prioritizing topics and content when there just isn't time to cover everything, which is the case for almost every exam, especially in exam blocks. And then active revision. So your teen is actually processing the information so they can easily retrieve it from their brain in the exam hall or during any task or lesson. And then some others that we didn't cover in the PD, but I think are worth mentioning here on this episode. Things like the universal skill of note-taking. Now, there are multiple systems and methods for this, but the skill is in selecting the most appropriate or relevant one for the topic or task, and then being able to execute it in a way that summarizes without losing important detail and lays it all out in a logical and effective way. There's also the universal skill of online research, Googling, researching in ways that get your teen the information that they actually need from high quality sources and doing it in a way that does not take up hours upon hours of ending up down rabbit holes or going around in those superficial sort of surface level circles of information. And then we've got things like time management and organization. I teach a system that I call the throw out the to-do list system because we all know that the to-do list is never ending. That never changes in life, does it? It never actually gets done, but mainly because the throw out the to-do list system orients around specific tasks and subtasks and outcomes with specific times that they will get done, not just arbitrary or mammoth tasks that have no real time frame except for a deadline. Now, these are all universal skills, and I could mention many more, that can be applied, and I should say need to be or should be applied in any subject in years 9 to 12 or 10 to 13, whatever syllabus or exam board your teen follows. And like I said, this isn't an exhaustive list, so I wouldn't treat this like a checklist as such, but I hope that it gives you an idea of what I mean and what I'm talking about when I use that term, universal. And I also hope that it provides some explanation of why learning even just one or two of these can make such a big difference to the students who have them, because they can use them in multiple ways across multiple subjects and build and hone them over time through those year groups and with each different scenario or task that they are faced with. So I would invite you to consider what universal skills your teen has and any that they don't yet have that might be holding them back across their subjects, throughout their tasks and their study, and as they move up through those year groups. And also, where could they perhaps be applying a skill that they've learned in one area or subject to another in a strategic rather than just a subject-specific way? And of course, if you'd love to have your teen trained in all of these skills and more, and they're in year 9 to 12 or 10 to 13, then I would love to have them join me in the 10-week grade transformation program. The direct link is in the show notes, or you can go to www.rocksolidstudy.com and click on program. Have a brilliant rest of your week, and I'll see you back here next week. Bye. If you're ready to have your teen achieve their best possible results with less stress, then I want to invite you to enroll them in the 10-week grade transformation program, where they're going to learn the key concepts, skills, and strategies to catapult their performance in assessments and exams. It's risk-free. They either achieve bigger and better results with a whole lot more confidence in 10 weeks, or we refund you in full. Just head over to www.rocksolidstudy.com/program and I'll see you there.